Good morning, students. Let's take a look at our morning message. May 12th, 2020. Good morning, students. I hope that you have been thinking about how body coverings protect animals. Let's make a list. Mrs. Kilmer. Okay, so we've been reading books about all kinds of body coverings, and you were supposed to be thinking about how they protect animals. So I want to show you how you can think and remind yourself about information that you've been learning and put it kind of in a chart, like take notes so that you can organize your thinking and figure out answers to questions like this and also understand information a little bit better. So I wrote all the different body coverings that we've read books about in our series: fur, feathers, scales, skin, and shells. I wrote those body coverings across the top of my chart. And we know that they all protect, right? We've been talking about that for about a week. But then a good question to ask ourselves is, how do they protect? What are the different ways in which they protect animals? So when I was thinking about all the different examples that we read about in the books, in my mind, it came down to two main things, two main areas, two main ways they protect. They protect from the environment and they protect against predators. So let's just talk a little bit about that. So they can protect in the environment from it being too hot or too cold. So in other words, they keep the animal warm or they keep the animal cool. Let's stick with keeping warm. So there were that's an easy one to keep in mind, lots of examples of animals whose fur, whose feathers, whose skin keep them warm when it gets cold, right? Now, keeping cool was a little different. We don't think of that so often, but I remember there was the example of the lizards and their scales in the hot desert, and how the scales were a way of keeping the animal cool, right? And then also in the environment, there's ways that these body coverings keep them from getting hurt, depending on their environment. For example, give me a thumbs up if you remember when the elephant was gathering leaves, like reaching their trunk up to get leaves from the trees. The pokey branches, the pokey parts of the tree don't hurt them because they have such thick skin. So that's keeping from getting hurt. Also, there was the example of the seals. For example, seals that are in the ocean and they have really thick furry skin that protects them from when they bump against the rocks, okay? So those are all ways that body coverings protect animals in their environment, just as they're living and also as they gather food. Now, another way animals are gathering food is when they are predators. And body coverings protect both predators, and then I was realizing, and prey, right? So the predators keep from getting hurt because the body coverings, when they're attacking an animal, their body covering, maybe it's thick fur and thick skin or thick scales, that protects them from the claws or the teeth of the animal that is attacking or being attacked. It's kind of a two-way thing, right? So I wrote that predators keep from getting hurt and that also they are protected from prey. So I would say that overall, body coverings protect animals from their environment as well as from predators. So I just wanted to show you that is a way to kind of organize your thoughts. When we read a lot of books about something, we read 5 different books, right? But to kind of get all those facts organized into a big picture, a big idea about what we're learning. And that's one way that your brain can understand information better. So what I'd like to go ahead and move on to another topic, again, is to take a good look at this Flies book that you read last week and you reread yesterday. So this book is about flies. I'm sorry I don't have a color printer, so this is black and white, but what I'm really interested in is the information, so we'll be okay. And there's a picture of a fly on the title page. This is an A to Z book written by Anthony Curran. And the first thing I see is a table of contents. What are flies? Fly bodies, how flies grow and change, how adult flies eat, flies and germs, why flies are important, gross but cool glossary. And one thing I like about these books, and I want to point this out to you, is that usually at the beginning they have words to know. So when we think of a list of words or important words in a book, lots of times we think, oh, that's going to be in the glossary, explaining it to us at the end. But one really good way to wake up your brain and get it ready to learn new words and learn new information is to actually already have a list of the new words that you might meet in the book. So in this case, germs, insects, larva, pollen, pupa, and solid. So we've actually learned those words before, but it's good to know that they're important or key words. Remember when we were learning about nonfiction, reading nonfiction books, we talked about key words. And key words are words that are important to understand in order to understand all of the information in the book. So this starts off with, what are flies? Flies are insects. There are many kinds of flies. Oh, and I see photos with little captions. A thistle gall fly, a net-winged midge, a bee fly, and fly bodies. Flies have one pair of wings. They also have tiny arms that help them steer when they fly. Oh, that's making me, I'm making a connection to that fun character Fly Guy. I can imagine him flying around and steering with his arms. So let's just look at the close-up. Here's 3 kinds of flies, and here they've taken a photograph and made it like a diagram with labels and arrows, wings and tiny arms. Flies have eyes that let them see all around. Each eye is made up of many little eyes. Wow, I love how this book has so many things that are making connections to our learning about nonfiction books and our own all about books that we wrote, right? So here's the photo of the fly and showing its eye, and then there's a close-up of a fly's eye, right? We learned about how close-ups teach us more information. How flies grow and change. All flies start as eggs. Each egg is tiny. And guess what? I see a diagram of a fly life cycle. That's reminding me of all these other life cycle books that we read before. And it's even got arrows. So let's take a closer look. Eggs, larva, pupa, and adult. Okay, so that's a life cycle. Wow. What insect did we read a lot about a couple of weeks ago that had a very similar life cycle? I'm going to wait to hear from you about that. Oh, and here's a great close-up showing all these teeny tiny fly eggs. Those are called horsefly eggs laid on a plant near a pond. Oh, horseflies. Those are the kind that kind of bite you sometimes. I don't like those so much. Out of the egg comes a larva. The larva eats plants, fruits, or dead things. When the larva is grown, it forms a hard cover. It is now a pupa. The pupa changes inside the cover. When it comes out, it is an adult. Adult flies do not live very long. Their main job is to lay eggs to make more flies. Okay, so here's a housefly larva. Here is a black fly larva and a black fly pupa. Here's a fruit fly pupa. And this says a new adult housefly must let its wings dry and spread out before it can fly. Again, I'm wondering how many people are making a connection to another kind of insect that we learned about that has a very similar life cycle. Okay. How adult flies eat. Adult flies drink all their food. They spit on solid food to turn it into goo. Then they drink the goo. Flies and germs. Flies sometimes pick up germs from the things they eat. Some of the germs can make people sick. Ooh, okay. So this says a blue bottle fly uses its sucking mouth part to feed on a kiwi fruit. And you can see this is really up close. You can see its mouth part there. And here's a bunch of flies on garbage. Wow. So, I'm thinking it's interesting, that whole idea about how it spits on solids, and then something in their spit makes the solid food turn into goo, and then they suck it up. Ooh, that's a little different. And yes, I'm making a connection to something I already know about how we try to keep flies off our food, because flies can spread germs that are bad for us. Some flies suck blood. They can spread germs in the blood from one person to another. A horsefly sucks blood from a person. Mosquitoes are one type of fly that can be dangerous to people. And you know what's amazing? I didn't quite realize that a mosquito was a kind of fly. You know, when I read this book last week, that was a really new, interesting connection to me. The idea that mosquitoes are a kind of fly. And there, look again with their mouth parts, sucking blood from animals or people. Why flies are important? Well, so far I've mostly heard about flies spreading germs and sucking blood from people and making them sick. So why would flies be helpful or important? Let's see. Flies spread pollen. Many plants need pollen to make seeds. This fly is feeding on the pollen on a flower. The pollen looks like yellow powder. Wow. So flies are also pollinators. Flies help break down dead plants and animals. Fly eggs and young are food for many other animals. Oh, so I got to stop and think. I think they said 3 ways that flies help and are important. They're pollinators. They break down dead plants and animals, because they eat them up and break them down. And their eggs and larvae are food for other animals. Okay, so there's 3 things. Green bottle flies feed on a dead earthworm, and a bird feeds on a crane fly larva. So it's interesting. That's a kind of cycle too. You know, we learn about a life cycle of the animal itself, but that's also, that's telling us about a bigger cycle, like a cycle of life that goes in between animals too. Gross but cool. Flies are amazing insects. And there's a green bottle fly. And again, I apologize that I don't have a color printer. I realized this would be a lot more fun with the really cool pictures. I saw the cool colored photos on my computer, but I couldn't print that out. Oh, and what do we have at the end? Glossary. Germs. Tiny living things that can cause disease or sickness. Insects. Small animals with 6 legs, 3 body parts, and usually 2 sets of wings. Larva, the immature form of an animal that goes through major body changes before it looks like an adult member of its kind. Ooh, major body changes like metamorphosis, making a connection to another kind of animal like this. Pollen, male flower cells which often look like fine yellow powder. Pupa, an immature insect in the stage between a larva and an adult. Solid, having a firm, stable form. Oh, that was like the solid food that they turn into liquid with their spit. Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this, and I really want you to do one of the activities that's on the back of the book. I actually thought of this before I saw the back of the book. This says, make a Venn diagram to compare a fly and another insect. So Venn diagrams, you know, in class sometimes we study different things, and then we go back and we compare 2 of the things, and we talk about what's the same and what is different. We compare and contrast. And we do that using what's called a Venn diagram. Those are those circular hoops that we use in class, like we compared Johnny Appleseed and Paul Bunyan. And we compared the different gingerbread stories, right? So you could compare 2 different insects. You can compare flies with another insect that we learned a lot about a couple of weeks ago. Can you think of who was the other pollinator that we've been learning so much about? Have you figured it out? Butterflies, right? Right? The butterfly life cycle. And when they keep talking about pupas, I'm thinking of the very, not hungry, but impatient caterpillar, right? So what I want you to do, kind of for a little homework, is I want you to think hard about the flies and the butterflies. And I want you to send me a little kind of list where you tell me what are the same, what things are the same about flies and butterflies, and what things are different, okay? I look forward to getting your email, and I'll see you later this afternoon for our fun fiction story. See you later.